Let's see. Switch it. Switch it. Uh-oh. I don't know how to be unsideways. I'm sideways, so we're gonna. Okay. Hi. Hey Valerie, how's it going? I'm probably just gonna wait like a couple minutes and see who tumbles on in. Hey Nicole. No, a different Nicole. Sorry. I I'm not. Never mind. Yeah, my day's been pretty good. How's everyone else's day? How long have I been growing out my hair? I decided in October 2019 to start growing my hair out. Hey Philip. Yeah, and then I've probably cut like I don't know, like 7 inches off just to keep it healthy. But yeah, I've been growing out my hair for a little over a year now. Dun, 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 dun. So the curly hair routine. Yeah, it's crazy. One of my best friends, Nicole, who has been on my channel, she's the one I did the interview with. She introduced me to this brush, and I never thought like a brush would make a huge difference, but it does. But I just naturally have super curly hair, which I'm super thankful about. Just had the worst crab growth of my life. Other than that, your day's been pretty good. Yeah, there's nothing kind of disappointing. It's like being super pumped for food and then all of a sudden being like, oh, this is not as good as I wanted it to be. Hey, Nicole Chamorro. So yeah, I'm gonna kind of give it like 5 or 7 minutes, and then I'll kind of get into like the introduction of what I kind of want to do with live streaming, and then get into kind of like what you guys would like live streaming to be. Um, the man, the myth, the legend. Hey, Nicholas. I don't know about legend. I'm just a normal guy. Hey, Kara. How's it going? Kara Schick. You're gonna need to change that last name soon on YouTube. Also, it's super interesting because for those that don't know, I script all my videos, and I script my videos because like I don't know if you've ever watched any of my videos, you know I tend to talk about some pretty serious things. So I like to be like very careful and considerate about like what I do and don't talk about and how I phrase it and spend some time before I put, you know, my content or my ideas out there. So live streaming is interesting because like other than having some general ideas of what I want to talk about, like there is no script and I get to just kind of like talk at you all. So it'll be interesting. It's going to be a very different style of me having like content or talking with you all. Uh, do you pronounce it Alex or Alex? Michelle, I think you're talking about the fact that I script videos, and yeah, because I mean, I think it's really important when I am talking about the things they talk about to consider other aspects. Like ultimately, what I talk about is my personal experiences, but when I talk about these very sensitive issues, it's important to consider, other people's perspectives and who is coming to my content and making sure I don't do a disservice to the things I talk about. Oh, like Alice with an X. Thanks, Miranda. Yeah, it's crazy. The two biggest videos on my channel are about some pretty heavy things. It's about my how I had an eating disorder and body image issues and body dysmorphia that pushed me to nearly ending my life accidentally, and then the story of my ex fiance's life threatening eating disorder and what that experience is like. So my two biggest videos by far are about like body image issues and just how extreme that can kind of get. Hey there, everyone. That's crazy. 28 people watching. Yeah, Valerie. So one of the videos I have that I'm preparing is I've managed to do some kind of crazy things with my physique. If you've seen my videos, I used to be very overweight, and I've gotten to this point where like I've had physiques that are pretty impressive, I guess. But the disturbing thing is, even after my overdose, a lot of my ability to change my body is out of pure self hate and self punishment. And so, for the first time in my life, at 27, I'm deciding to stop, changing my body out of a place that is ultimately motivated by like self-hate. And it's a huge challenge because self-hate and these other tactics, they're great tools if you want to change your body, but ultimately it gets into this place of, now that I have this channel that brings like meaning into my life, I don't really hate myself as much as I used to, and because of that, I've really struggled to maintain the physique I like, and so exploring, well, how do I have a better relationship with my body now that I'm not nearly as self-loathing as I used to be? Oh, thank you, Victoria. Hey, Sweden. That's another really cool thing is um I never really thought like my videos would reach so many people outside of the United States. So to see people commenting, or I've had people reach out to me, like I have Fee's Little World from Germany. I've had people from South Africa, Sweden, Spain, all over the place. Um Yeah, Valerie, like it's just one of those things where like these topics of like wanting to change your body is so prevalent to so many people, and there's this huge sense of desperation around it because we pin all this belief of happiness and that looking a certain way or feeling a certain way is like this answer to our self-disdain. And I think it's important to kind of explore why there's a lot of myth and falsehood in that. Hey, Bulgaria, right on. North Africa, that's awesome. Ireland, literally all over the place. That is awesome. For the people that are watching on, the eastern side of the hemisphere, thank you for taking your time. I don't really know what time it is where you're at. It's 7 p.m. here, so the fact that you're taking the time to like kind of watch, that means a lot to me. Hey, Canada, that's awesome. Hungry, literally all over the place. I really thought it was gonna be mostly people from the North America. 1 a.m. Okay, right on. Oh, thank you, Valerie. Yeah, it's really interesting because a lot of people have these questions of like, why am I vulnerable, or why am I like self-aware, or why am I so articulate? And it's just a lot of practice. I don't think I'm particularly special. Like, I don't think there's anything innately about me that makes me a better talker or better at being self-aware than other people. I just think I was unfortunately thrust into these situations where I didn't really have a choice, like in the life and death situation I had with my ex fiance. Like, I didn't really have the time or the opportunity to make mistakes. And so I think in that environment, it really pushed me to like get better at communicating and better at like understanding what was going on and how to navigate that in a way that was like quick and fair and made sense. Thank you. Brazil, New York, right on. Southern Indiana, Seymour. Yeah, I'm actually in Bloomington right now, so we're not too far away from each other. What is my day job? Yeah, I definitely agree. Trauma often makes you sink or swim. So I had this video about why I got fired for my mental health. The last important job I had, I was going through suicidal ideation and I was super depressed. And because of that, I was in this amazing work environment where my boss was super supportive. But my boss was one of the first people I kind of opened up about my trauma. And he'd have these conversations that were amazing, like honestly, absolutely amazing. But because he was supportive, ironically, like it was just very overwhelming for me. And I ultimately ended up sabotaging that job. I ended up getting fired because, like, it's kind of a longer story, but that experience has taught me that like right now where I'm at with my life, I don't really trust myself in a work environment. So I do some contracting work. I graduated from IU with a computer science degree. So sometimes I do some website stuff. But right now, I think my big focus is, trying to push through my depression, push through my suicidal ideation, get to a place where like me being a part of another company or something makes sense. And then also, I do YouTube. So YouTube takes up a lot of my time, but I really truly enjoy being a content creator. And then it's nice because one of the reasons I started my channel is because it integrates really well with this whole journey I have as a person to become better. Yeah, no, people keep on making the TED Talk comment. I would actually really like to do a TED Talk. I think that would be really dope. Coders Unite, right on. Yeah, I love programming. I really like making things make sense, and I think the reason I like philosophy and psychology is the same reason I like coding. It's understanding this inner working of an aspect that we deal with every day. So, like understanding how to manipulate it or change it or why it works the way it does, I think is fascinating. Yeah, I don't know. Corporate America, I've only had a couple of experiences. I had an internship at GE, which is General Electric, and that was definitely not the place where like I don't know. Also being in the Midwest for people outside of the United States is just like literally the Midwestern section of the United States. We're very friendly people, but when it comes to these like taboo subjects, right? Like we don't like to talk about sex, we don't like to talk about mental health or depression or suicide or anything like that. Those topics are really challenging to talk about, and so especially in a professional setting where there is some kind of reasonable expectation that you should kind of separate your personal life, it's especially challenging to kind of be vulnerable or have that be integrated into like work performance and stuff like that. Oh, thank you so much, Victoria. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting because a lot of people make these comments about like, insightful or like well-adjusted or well-spoken or like emotionally intelligent men, and I think men do struggle with those aspects. I think the only reason I am the person that I am is because I've been unfortunately blessed to be put in situations where, like when I was younger, when I was 21, I was like a huge fuck boy. Like I didn't really understand how to like navigate things. I didn't know how to talk. I had a really bad problem where like every time I was upset, like I just closed down and I would get very, I don't know, like I get angry and people had to earn my love. And so, unfortunately, when I was younger, I was very stereotypical male. And then I got into these situations where, like, that just didn't work. Like, being stereotypically male put, like, my partner's life on the line, and, like, I just couldn't afford it. So, I mean, in some areas, like, something I talk about a lot is, like, the gift of trauma or the beauty in trauma. And so I'm really thankful, even though those events were hard and they've shaped me, and I still struggle with them to this day. They've really pushed me to become a better man. Hey, Tokyo, that is so awesome, honestly. Yeah, Michelle, like, I don't know. I think these topics are so taboo in society, right? And they're hard to talk about, and they're hard to talk about responsibly. Like, that's the big thing I want to advocate, is that, like, if we are going to have these conversations, like, I want to have these conversations in a way that, like, really focuses on like being responsible, being ethical, like talk, like for instance, when I opened up about my video, I to some extent I disclosed about my previous partner's struggles with an eating disorder. Now I had my reasons for that, but I had to be very careful about how I navigated that, and very careful that like I wasn't doing more harm than good. From the Bay Area. I actually just this summer went to San Francisco, and the Bay is so pretty. I love it up there. How did you stay motivated during your first year of YouTube? How did I stay motivated? So it's interesting. I thought about doing a YouTube channel for 7 years before I started one. I didn't start one for like all the kind of classical reasons. I said quite honestly to myself, who the fuck am I to be a YouTube creator? I still kind of struggle with that identity of like seeing value in what I'm doing. Luckily, I have so many amazing people that leave comments that kind of help combat that idea. I think ultimately the thing that kept me motivated, because I didn't really find success until literally a month ago. I had under 100 subscribers at the start of December. But the thing that motivated me was I set out to answer a question. And the question was this: is YouTube something I can find success in? So the goal wasn't to hit 1,000 subscribers. It wasn't to become monetized. My goals weren't that. The goal is like, can I be a content creator? Can I create compelling, engaging, valuable content for the people that are viewing? Like, can I help change lives, or present alternate alternate opinions and stuff like that? And so, as long as I was striving to keep pushing myself as a creator, that's what motivated me. And when I met failures, right? Like, I've had so many videos I've worked very hard on that got no traction, that still to this day don't have a lot of views. Um, it sucked, and it always sucks when you put a lot of time and effort into something. But even those failures weren't enough to answer that question. No, because there's a lot of kind of rules about like YouTube. Like for instance, like most people don't get their first 1,000 subscribers until like 100 videos in. So I don't know. I just kept on pushing at myself and pushing at my writing and content, and that's largely what's kept me motivated. And then also, like I said, like my YouTube channel is to help promote the self development I'm doing in my own life. So to kind of give up on my YouTube channel was to also kind of give up on self development, and I wasn't really willing to do that. Oh, thank you so much, Warped Tour. That honestly means a lot. Like, I leave a lot of these comments where I'm like, "Oh, your comments or your comment meant a lot to me, or your kind words meant a lot to me." It really does mean a lot to me. There's a lot of cliches around content creators and influencers that, like, sometimes it's disingenuous, or sometimes people don't mean it. But as I've said in my like thank you videos, like I'm literally like talking about some of the most vulnerable things possible, and you all have been so supportive. And not only that, but you've also been vulnerable and open enough to share your kind of your own struggles and the own things you deal with. So I think all of that really does mean so much to me. Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I had someone reach out to me and talk about Asian culture, and I think maybe it might have been you, but just Asian culture in general. And like, I think one of the differences between Eastern and Western philosophy is like, here in the United States or in Western culture, we're very individualistic, right? Like we only really think about ourselves in terms of who we are. So I think one of the benefits to that is like, when it comes to mental health, like in the United States at least, like we don't ever take a person's mental health and project that as some kind of statement on a family or like a social group or something like that. Sometimes there are influences like that, but in large speaking, like even the Midwest, like I would never say I have depression and then someone would hear that and then make some kind of statement about my family or my friends. Ultimately, whatever I'm suffering from stays with me. And my understanding of Eastern culture, like there's a lot more repercussions of like the individual on the system of people that they're incorporated with, whether that's like friends or family or like a workplace. And so I think when what you're suffering from has all these implications on the people around you, it is a lot harder to claim that suffering or even talk about it, because there carries this like guilt and burden that you may be like damaging the kind of the people around you by acknowledging what you're going through. Who are some content creators or YouTubers I get inspiration from? I think in my niche, right? Matt Davella, Thomas Frank, Captain Sinbad. They're all other self development people. Modern Health Monk. These are all like amazing creators in my space. People I aspire to be more like. So those are people I really like. Mr. Beast is a YouTuber I look up to because he's just completely changed the way YouTube works, and he's done it all himself. And so those are kind of people I look up to, like people that through their content like help change things and help motivate people or like bring people happiness. Those are all people I really look up to. How long have I been writing poetry? One of my next videos is talking about why I got into poetry. I've been writing poetry for 2 years. I started writing poetry at the after the end of my engagement. There were some pretty hard and dark things that happened in that engagement that I haven't even talked about on YouTube, and so I was left in the situation where I didn't know how to cope with it. I couldn't talk to anyone. I had all these secrets of my partner that were really harming me and causing me a lot of hardship. And so I turned to poetry because I got into spoken word, ironically, through my ex. And with these spoken word artists, they were able to capture these awful moments or these huge amounts of pain and concisely put it into this performance, and they could make you feel something. And so I got into poetry to help navigate like the things I was going through and how that was taking a toll. So yeah, I've been doing poetry off and on for 2 years now, and it was ironic because I think me recording my spoken words is what actually pushed me to starting the YouTube channel and focusing on other content. Yeah, Nicole, I think you touch upon a big reason why I started this channel. When I was depressed and I was going through all these things, I mean, I'm still depressed, but when my depression was worse, it was hard because I turned to YouTube, I turned to books, I turned to all these sources to get inspiration and answers. And I'd find people on the other side of it, right? Like they're already, successful or already happy or already like where they want to be. And that's great, right? Like understanding how they got there is amazing. But along the way, there's this like lack of tangibleness to like what they're talking about. Like there's this vagueness to exactly what they're doing. And more importantly, sometimes they focus more on what was successful and not what was a failure. And so I think the interesting thing I try to do with my channel is like capture all of it, like really make it tangible and real. Like the things I'm going through, the things I'm trying, like the things that fail, the things that work. By no means like am I suggesting like the right way or the true way, but my goal is to give my subscribers, the people that watch my content, the tools to kind of approach these big questions in their own life. Hey Brenda, it's so nice to see you. So happy to see your engagement on here. I'm proud of you. Yeah, Brenda Flores is one of my like my close friends. We met here in Bloomington. She's a big reason why I started a channel. So shout out to Brenda. Have I ever thought about getting a therapy dog? It's interesting. I struggle to take care of myself most days, so I think on an ethical level, it's really hard for me to justify getting a dog because I don't know if I could give it the amount of attention and care it needs. So I would love a dog. Like I'm a big dog guy. There's cats in the house I live in. I live with two of my siblings, and cats are great, but as far as like a dog that needs a lot of attention, I don't really think I'm in a place where that makes sense. So yeah, I love a dog though. Hey Daniel, High Mileage Helper is my best friend Daniel Stanton. He is the single reason I have a YouTube channel. He's another YouTuber. He focuses on his job as an RV transporter and helping people like make money with their vehicle. Daniel's had a YouTube channel I think for like 2.5 years, and he really pushed me to start this channel. So whatever I do here, it's a big help because of Daniel. Yeah. So I think at this point, I want to quickly get into like what I kind of want live streaming to be. So I don't know if you all know what the word parasocial means, but a parasocial relationship is kind of this one directional relationship you have with a content creator. At the end of the day, like you watch people's content, you leave comments, sometimes they reply, but it kind of creates this one-way relationship between the viewer and the creator. Now, ultimately, no matter what I do, ultimately we're going to have a parasocial relationship, just due to the nature of YouTube and the internet. But I want live streaming to be this place where, like, for those that want to, we can have a more direct conversation. You can have a conversation with other people. Like, ultimately, what I want to build on YouTube is a community, a place where people feel safe to talk about these really taboo topics that they can't talk about with their friends or can't talk about with their family. So yeah, I think live streaming, like I want to get to know you all a little bit better. I want to give you a chance to see me in a way that's unedited and unscripted. Outside of that, like I think I want live stream to be ultimately, whatever you all want it to be, and exactly what that looks like or how that takes form, we'll kind of like see as it goes. But yeah, I just want to feel, I just want the relationship that we have as between, subscriber and content creator to be a little bit more personal, or as personal as it can really get due to the nature of like our interactions. But yeah, I think it's a little bit more useful because I want you to feel heard. Like I want you to feel like your opinion or what you have to say matters, and be able to kind of interact with that like in a more real time sort of way. Um, but I don't know. I'm always curious like what other people would look for on a live stream. I don't know if you all have any ideas, but yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's just an opportunity to kind of have a conversation in a way that I can't do when I just upload videos. Um, Yeah, I don't know. It's also it's a little weird having a live stream. I don't always know what to talk about, just because when I create a video, there's like a really clear cut plan of what I'm doing. So live stream is a little bit more off the cuff. What is my upload schedule? I try to schedule at least upload 2 to 3, at least 2 videos a week. There has been some crazy developments in my YouTube channel that I'm super excited to talk about. One of my subscribers recommended I reached out to a certain content creator. It's still in the works. This content creator is absolutely massive on YouTube, but we might do a collab. We've been talking about it. So I haven't really uploaded this last week because I've been talking with him and getting it figured out. But if that goes through, it will be absolutely huge for my channel. And I think it might end up helping a lot of people. It's ultimately about my overdose. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. But in general, I try to upload at least 2 to 3 videos a week if I can. Um, I have like individual topics that I like talking about or I'm excited to talk about, and then I have like a much larger roadmap. I always try to have my videos string into these progressive, deeper, or more exploring of a topic. And by that I mean like I'll have like one video that covers one aspect of something, and then I'll leave a piece in there that like if someone wants more information on that, they can go on and watch a much more in-depth conversation about it. But yeah, in general, I have a pretty long roadmap. Already it could like take me through the rest of the year, but that's kind of my upload schedule that I like to stick to. How old am I? I'm 27. I'll be 28 in May. Brenda, I don't know who Anna is off the top of my head, but I'm gonna pull her channel up real quick. Anna, yeah, and I'll check. I'll check her out later. Oh, where'd it go? Tell us about what videos. So one thing I want to eventually do is have like a list of video topics that I have. I'm a Taurus, May 6th. I'm very much a Taurus through and through. So eventually, I want to have like kind of like 6 or 7 videos that I'm working on, and allow my subscribers to vote on the ones they're most curious about. But some of my upcoming videos are about why self hate is a powerful tool for weight loss, but ultimately why it's unsustainable. Another video I have is I've faced some criticism here on YouTube in the comments, and kind of exploring how I deal with criticism and how I handle it, because I think the way I approach criticism is a little bit different. I always try to take the high road and see value in it, even if people are kind of being an ass, honestly. But Capricorn, right on. The overdose video was so educational, at the same time left me with so much gratitude for my life. Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people have left similar feelings, that the overdose video like inspired this feeling of gratitude. It was a really weird experience, nearly dying, and it kind of feels surreal. It was 5 years ago now. Yeah, a little over 5 years ago. So there's times where I kind of forgot, like I forget that it happened, just because after my overdose was all the stuff with my ex. And so, in the grand scheme of things, which is crazy to say, the whole life and death situation, is maybe like third down on the rung of like the things I've gone through. I'm probably gonna say this wrong, but Yolana, that means a lot to me, that like people can watch my content and feel like they're learning something. I have no I like airs about me. I don't think I have everything figured out. Ultimately, all I want to do is like try to be helpful and try to like present stuff in a way that is maybe different. And I think that's the one criticism I have of a lot of YouTubers is, like, yeah, they put out really well shot videos, and they put out really well produced videos, but sometimes I feel like it's just, I don't know how to describe it. It kind of like candy or sugar, where like, yeah, like it tastes good and it's this like quick introduction, but I don't really feel like they get into the meat of it, or I end up coming away feeling like I want more. And a lot of self-development YouTubers, not that there aren't amazing creators, there are amazing creators, there's easily creators way better than me, but I want to help, get away from some of this like pseudo intellectualism, or like this like kind of fake positivity, or these people that kind of just say the same things and reiterate. So that's ultimately my goal, is to try to have a huge goal to aspire to, and I'm not entirely sure if that's my place, but nonetheless, that's where I'm going towards. Do you think one should aspire to remain in contact with their ex, even if the relationship was toxic? Ooh, I don't know. That's hard. For instance, I haven't spoken to my ex in a year and a half. For both of us, ultimately the what we needed to grow as individuals and be healthier was to stop talking. As long as we were in each other's lives, not that it's hard, because we're not bad people, right? But together, and the things we've gone through, was bad. And so I think for our health and for us to grow as people, we really needed to separate that contact. Now I'm wouldn't be opposed to like maybe later in life, having another conversation with her and sitting down with her. But I think right now, for both of us, what's best for us is to have this very separate life, and just kind of go our own ways. And it's not that I'm angry with her, or I don't really know how she feels about me, honestly. We haven't talked in a while, but I think in terms of what's healthy, that's what's best for me and for her. Da, 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 da. Yeah, your video about how trauma impacts your physical body and how you think of yourself really made me rethink some of the things I've gone through, a unique perspective for sure. Um, yeah, yeah, it's weird because one of the things that really highlighted, right, is that like our bodies are just how like our beings, our personalities, our consciousness, our soul, however you like to quantify your conceptualization of self is in this body. And then often our bodies are shaped by these traumatic experiences or things like depression or like the pandemic. We're all going through lockdown in the way that has shaped our body. And it's difficult because like when you look at someone's body, there's nothing about it that tells you why it's the way it looks. And so it's hard because like what I talked about with the death of my father, like I had gained all that weight because I blamed myself for his death and I was really coping with food. So ultimately, like for me, it wasn't just the fact I was overweight, like that did suck, but it was the fact that the overweight was a product of, this horrific event in my life. And people didn't see that. People didn't understand that because a body can't communicate what created it. And so I think there's a lot of talk, especially in the fat acceptance movement, about like changing beauty standards. And I think that's admirable and I agree that we shouldn't have a society that has these unrealistic expectations, but at the end of the day, like if your body is a product of trauma or a product of something awful, it's super important to understand that and understand like why that's almost more important than really necessarily what society's saying to some extent. Yeah, like the candid, and thank you so much for the compliment about being candid and aware. I have one rule. Like, if I'm gonna talk about stuff on YouTube, like I need it to be authentic. I need it to be as candid as possible, because otherwise, like, there's no point. Like, there's no point in lying. There's no point in like trying to like my goal on my channel is not to be likable. Like it would be cool if you liked me as a person, but ultimately the goal with my channel is to provide content or provide insight that might be helpful. And sometimes to do that, I have to tell you about some of the worst mistakes I've ever done. I have to tell you about my failures. I have to tell you about, all these mistakes I've made. And even if that may paint me in a light that you find to be pathetic or sad or whatever it is, I think it's super necessary to be honest and to paint a realistic kind of representation of things. Am I in the mental health field? No, I'm not in the mental health field. I graduated with a bachelor's of science in computer science. I do find philosophy super fascinating. I read a lot of it on my own time. But a lot of like why I talk the way I talk is because I've been put in a lot of situations where understanding what was going on in my mind or the mind of others was sometimes life and death. And whether it's my overdose and having to cope with, almost losing my life or, things with someone else's life, it became very apparent to me that I needed to spend a lot of time thinking about these things and understanding what I was going through. How do you feel? I appreciate the bit about you and your ex. I also had a relationship where my partner's mental health illness caused secondary harm and trauma to me. It's good to hear someone talk about that experience. Yeah, I think it's really hard, right? Like when we're in relationships where the things we go through are secondary to the mental health of someone else, it feels wrong to complain about it. It feels wrong to say that it was hard. It feels wrong to say that maybe it's caused us trauma and hardship. And also when you're protecting the secrets of someone else, right? Like when what's causing them anguish has been confided to you in private, then it's really hard because you can't really necessarily talk to your parents or your friends, because to talk about the reason it's hard is to disclose these secrets. And navigating how do you then get care, ultimately the first person I kind of reached out to is my therapist, because in therapy like I can disclose whatever I want and it still be ethically and morally right. But that was one thing I really struggled with is like navigating like the person that has caused me hardship, has gone through a lot on their own and they're a sympathetic victimizer, but like how much of it am I allowed to be upset about? Like how much of it am I allowed to be like, this isn't right or this is wrong? How do I feel about social pressures, maybe in regarding career, money, relationships, physical appearance, etc., affecting one's mental health? I'm trying to let go of that, but it's not easy. It's hard. I don't necessarily care. And that's hard because to break free of that takes a lot. I think the reason I still care somewhat, but ultimately I've let go of a lot of social pressures because I've kind of come to this conclusion that after the things I've been through, a lot of people don't understand me. And if you've gone through hard things, like when you have these normative conversations with people that care about normative things like career pressures or all this other stuff, it's hard to relate. And at the end of the day, there are a lot of people that have gone through stuff, but there's equally a lot of people who have had very normal lives, which is amazing. I would never want anyone to purposely go through hardship. But I think the way I've let go of some of the social pressures is to I don't know, kind of understand that like what I've gone through is outside their realm of understanding. And I don't mean that in like a condescending way, but it's really hard to understand something like depression, for instance, if you've never gone through depression. And so I think I try to care a little bit less about the opinions of people who haven't necessarily gone through what I've gone through in terms of like depression or anxiety or, nearly losing my life or anything like that. For me, it's yeah, more. I like. Thank you so much for acknowledging the transparency. It's a huge part of what I do here on YouTube. So it said how much importance we put on beauty and specifically being attractive. Yeah, I completely agree. Like, we our bodies are these like muted expressions of ourselves. Like the idea that like the only way we have value is our physical appearance is such a limiting way of perceiving people and a limited way of like taking people in. Like we as humans are capable of creating art, creating meaning in other people's lives. Like the way in which we add value to the world is so much more so than just our physical appearance. And I think to judge people only on their physical appearance is such a limiting and unfair way to kind of approach like who is important and who is meaningful and who like should deserve our acknowledgement and praise. Just watched your DMP video and it was a very big eye opener. Thank you. Stumbled upon it because I was actually going through the research phase and trying to lose weight. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, Cal. I got really desperate about losing weight, and as I talked about in my video, I started with T3 and ephedrine. The thing that's difficult is that you have all these people in forums that maybe they have taken these chemicals, maybe they haven't, and maybe they were lucky. But like, if you only read about weight loss in like forums and online, it's easy to convince yourself that these potentially life-ending chemicals like are you can take it because plenty of people do, right? Like plenty of people have taken DMP and not died. But a lot of people have taken DMP and died. So I think it's important to kind of, and also the difficult thing is like there's this concept called bias, where only the survivors of an event give information about what happened. So the people that die on DMP don't have the opportunity to share their stories because they're unfortunately not here. So it's easy when the only people who are talking about something are fortunate enough to have taken it and escaped any consequences. It creates this environment where you can have this false sense of security around a chemical. Thank you again, Michelle. Hey, Chris, how can I confront my fear of failure? I feel like I've tried to accomplish so much and achieve this perfection in all aspects of life, but I somehow always seem to let myself down. I mean, I think you've kind of already touched upon yourself this idea of perfection. Like, perfection is this inescapable thing. Like in a different context, like one of the reasons I kept pushing myself with weight loss is the more and more like perfect my body got, the more and more minuscule things bothered me about it, right? Like one aspect of my body was out of whack. I didn't like it. And so when your goal is perfectionism, you will always find some harder and harder aspect of whatever it is you're chasing to address. And then it reaches this point where like to fix those minute or small details becomes such a huge challenge to overcome. I think the biggest thing that has hurt me in my life is fear of failure. I have purposely sabotaged a great number of things in my life because as long as I had control over that failure, it felt, more palatable. The thing I never wanted to do was to give my all to something and then fail. I think one of the big things that's helped me with that is I have a video about like how to chase your dreams. And for instance, like I said with YouTube, my goal on YouTube isn't to like hit 100,000 subscribers. It isn't to make a living off of it. The goal with my channel on a personal level is, can I successfully create content? And that's focused on the process of creating content, right? Like, and the nice thing is like that's a sliding scale. When you're focusing on processes of change or process of accomplishment of whatever your goal is, like as long as you're moving forward, like maybe on a video I could be better at writing, or maybe on this video I could be better at like my lighting or something like that. And so it's a lot harder to fail when you're focused on this question of, is this something I can find success in? Is this something that I can be good at? Because when you do fail, all it really does is give you another piece of information to like adjust that process. But I think in terms of perfectionism, I think that's just such a slippery slope to go down, because there is no such thing as something being perfect. But letting go of that feeling is also equally very challenging. Depression, anxiety can sometimes trigger big binge eating episodes for me. Do you have any suggestions about how to deal with that? Yeah. So I'm a binge eater. I have been a binge eater ever since my father died. It's the way I cope with stress. It's the way I cope with a lot of stuff. And even though I haven't been overweight for a long time, I still struggle with binge eating disorder, which is something I'll kind of talk about in a future video. The way I navigate it is a lot of avoiding triggers. For instance, I don't keep a lot of food in my house that like I know I would binge on, because I don't have a lot of self control. And I think for me, regardless whether it's binging or regardless whether it's some other self-destructive behavior, I always tend to sit down when I'm like feeling that and then break it down. Like, why am I feeling this? Like, what am I hoping to accomplish? And then I don't know, explore what's driving that emotion. Like, what's causing me to want to abusively work out or binge or be self-destructive or not work on YouTube. And so yeah. Have my symptoms improved slowly over years? Yeah, I think for the most part, I've come away from the whole overdose pretty unscathed. I still have to pee maybe like every 30 minutes, so that sort of sucks. But I definitely did some kind of kidney damage. But other than that, I'm very fortunate and very lucky to be very normal. No, Elijah. I don't know if I said that wrong. Alicia, sorry. Have you ever been close to falling back into using food as a comfort during times of hardship, or is this something you fully recovered from for good? And has lockdown at all had an effect on this? Yeah, food will always be a comfort mechanism for me. I think once you've had that relationship, at least for me, I've never been able to shake it. I think food will always be the first thing I turn to for comfort. And the second thing I will always turn to is like distraction techniques like video games. I think the thing that's helped me with that is understanding that relationship and understanding that like food can only comfort me so much, and that like the answer is not in food. Like I can binge all I want, or I can eat like the worst food, or I can turn to whatever form of food I want to, but ultimately that's not going to give me an answer. The thing that's going to give me an answer is addressing what's causing me anxiety, what's causing the trigger, and then working on that. So I think, but then that's kind of moving from a place where you're coping to actively working on stuff. And so I guess the best answer when it comes to coping with whatever it is, whether it's food or drugs or whatever kind of coping mechanism you use, is to move from a place where you feel the need to cope to where you're primarily trying to like affect change. uh hey, Argentina, that's amazing. Victoria says, I love you. I love you all. Like I love all my subscribers, so thank you so much. I second that. There are exams I never took because it was easier for me to decide to fail at it and not do them intentionally. Yeah, interestingly enough, like the sheer number, I failed out of college twice before I ultimately graduated. And when I failed out of Purdue, which is the engineering school here in Indiana, it was very deliberate. I purposely kind of set out to fail out, and the reasons behind that are kind of nuanced and complex. But ultimately, it was this way of like, I was in engineering. Engineering was very challenging, and it was requiring a lot of time and effort for me to be good at it. And I started to fear like maybe I'm not smart enough for engineering, and I still don't know the answer. But at the time, that fear that I was not smart enough or not good enough to be an engineer, I ultimately decided, well, I'm going to decide not to be an engineer by failing at it instead of actually trying. Christopher, yeah, no, my a few of my stories are pretty crazy. The thing that always humbles me is that I've met people who have had crazier lives. I've met friends who have told me stories that like give me chills down my back. We all live these crazy lives, and we've all been through these unique and kind of individual pains. And I think I just want to create a space where we can all talk about these things and not feel so isolated or like talking about it is taboo or uncomfortable. Myself to eat. I don't know. It was really weird. Let me allow myself. Also allow yourself to fail in a small way first. I had a similar issue in grad school, feeling like I had to get a 4.0 GPA. For me, it helped to allow myself to fail in small ways first. Yeah, I think that's a good tactic is to like kind of face that fear and then experience, because ultimately the fear of failure is like a fear of a reality, right? Like you fear this reality in which something is lesser. You fear this reality that like you're not as good at something or that you can't achieve something. So I think to fail in a smaller way and kind of taste that reality and see it as not as bad as you kind of thought it was is pretty important. Um, Hi, Chris. Love your videos. Your transparency is extremely refreshing. Thanks for opening up and being vulnerable with us. Yeah, Layla. Thank you so much. Like, yeah, it takes a lot of work to be vulnerable, and it takes a lot of work to kind of put yourself out there. But what I'm really astonished by is the sheer amount of openness and vulnerability my subscribers have. The people that view my content. My content can be triggering. My content can be upsetting. My content can sometimes tell you things you don't want to hear. And so, really, the people I want to focus on is you all. Like, you take the time to interact with my content. You take the time to consume it and open yourself up to it. And some of you even take the time to be vulnerable yourselves and comment for the world to see what you've been through or how you relate. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, like what I do is, I don't know, like hard or a lot of work, but what you all do is just as equally important to acknowledge. I feel like we're so similar with our mental health. It's really nice knowing that I'm not alone in some of these things. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, Millie, like that's been another thing. I never set out to create a YouTube channel to feel less alone. I created it to try to help people. But to hear, like, for instance, I had this video about why I blamed myself for the death of my father. And growing up, that felt, I don't know, that I felt so isolated in that. Like, how could anyone relate to that. And then sure enough, in the comments on that video, I've had so many other people talk about how they blame themselves for their death of their parent as well. And so I think it's that sense of community or that sense of like, oh my God, this thing I've been struggling with for sometimes years of my life, like someone else gets it and someone else has been in that situation. And just knowing, like, and it's a weird thing because you're not necessarily happy. Like, for instance, I'm not happy that someone else has blamed themselves for the death of their father or mother or whatever it may be. But just that sense of like, okay, like maybe this thing, this awful thing that happens to some of us, I'm not nearly as alone with. What is the name Eastbound based on? I keep reading it Earthbound. Eastbound is this like play on words. So East is my last name. My name is Christopher East. And so the idea is that I'm very much on this journey or bound to be a different and better me. I my name Chris, so my first name's Christopher. Most people call me Chris. Chris very much became this conceptualization of like all the worst things I had ever done or the worst things I'd gone through. And so a big part of trying to overcome my depression and trauma was to shift to a new identity. And so I've kind of abandoned the name Chris. Like people still call me Chris and that's fine. I prefer Christopher. You can call me Chris. That's cool. But on a personal level, I'm no longer Chris. I'm trying to kill off Chris metaphorically. And so the idea with my channel is how do I become a different person? How do I become a better person? And kind of sharing that process with you all. Sorry if this is too personal, but having struggled with disordered eating yourself, did your ex's anorexia at all affect your own relationship with food or body image? Yeah, no. It was hard because I met my ex fiance a month before I overdosed, and so our 1 month anniversary, the doctors were telling her I was gonna die, and so that was weird. When I first met my ex, she didn't have any signs of having a difficult past. She had had previously anorexia, but she was in full recovery. And so when I entered that relationship, I really thought I was entering a relationship with someone who was super solid, like someone she was chasing a lot in life. She was very successful. And then when I had my overdose and nearly died a month into our relationship, unfortunately, that's the thing that triggered her anorexia to start back up. And I had a lot of guilt about that. The stress of this new relationship she had and having to be told by the doctors that I was probably going to die was this huge burden on her. So to watch her kind of fall down the rabbit hole that is eating disorders was really challenging. And then also, one of the ways that relationship was hard was I became very integrated with her disordered eating and anorexia. I had to keep track of her calories. I had to go on all the runs with her. I had to go to the store with her. I had to cook with her. I was always in the presence of it. And so because I like to abuse my body through working out, and she also liked to abuse her body through working out. It was hard because even though I was trying to step away from my own eating disorders and body image issues, because I was in that relationship, it was really hard to cut away from it. And this codependency that we had was super damaging and kind of furthered my own self-hate and my like relying on these negative things as coping mechanisms, especially like when things got really difficult in that relationship. Like I was very stressed, a lot of things were on the line, and so I ultimately turned to a lot of abusing my body and controlling my body to ironically kind of cope with all this stuff that was going on with her own body and her eating disorder. I'm about to flunk my college classes. I know my parents are going to be disappointed, but I can't seem to get myself to do the work, especially with online classes. I was diagnosed with MDD, depression, and but I can't keep blaming my mental health for each semester that I barely pass. Yeah, this is a really difficult one. I relate to a lot. She Sarah is talking about like almost flunking out of classes and having I don't know what MDD is, a form of depression, I guess. And so I barely graduated from IU. The only reason I graduated, ironically, was because of COVID. When lockdown happened, all these negative coping strategies I was using, like going out and sleeping around, were all of a sudden taken away, and it was just enough kind of benefit to graduate. But like I definitely relate to that of being depressed and then not having the energy to kind of put into your academics. And it's hard because on some level you're just so angry with yourself, right? Like my academics or like my life is important. These things I should care about. Like why don't I care about them? Why can't I do the work? And that's not an easy feeling to navigate or deal with because it feels stupid, right? Like when you're depressed and you have these really important things in your life that you can't bring yourself to do, you just want to say like, oh, like I'm just being dumb or I'm being stupid or like why can't I just do my homework? But that's kind of the quintessential reason why depression is hard, is because these things that are important to you or that you should do just completely fall by the wayside. And that I think that's what makes depression devastating, is like yes, you're depressed and yes, you're dealing with this stuff, but like you just don't care. Like you care but you don't care. And it's this really weird and paradoxical relationship you kind of have with everything. Um uh, have you ever gotten surgery for your loose skin? Luckily, I wasn't. I was 250 pounds, but I was still really young when I lost all my weight. So I have minimal loose skin, but if you all know who Obese to Beast is, my loose skin is not nearly as bad as someone who is significantly overweight and lost a lot of it. I was very fortunate. I was 18 when I lost it, so by the time I had lost all my weight, my skin was still pretty elastic and was able to kind of fully come back. The one thing I do have a lot of still to this day is stretch marks. I have a ton of stretch marks, like in this region and around my legs, and then over on here. I ultimately don't care about my stretch marks. I think it's not that they don't bother me, but I can't change them. They're always going to be a part of my body. And so for me, I'm not super self conscious about them, truthfully. Um, you know, get the feelings of revenge. Oh, as someone who has lost their father young, 20s, how do you navigate feelings of resentment towards those who still have both parents and don't appreciate it? I have so many ugly thoughts sometimes. Yeah, this is tough. Like, uh, it's hard when you listen to people talk about these petty reasons why they're upset at their parents, right? Um, they're talking about how awful their parents are. Their parents don't get them, and you get this nagging thought in the back of your head. You're like, really? Like, and you almost want to say like, at least they're not dead, right? And I don't know. When I was younger, I struggled with this a lot because when my father died, I was 16, and now at 27, I meet a lot of other people who also have lost a parent at least. But when I was like 16, like all my peers, like, right, like they all had their parents and they didn't know what it was like. And they would, you know, as teenagers do, they would be very resentful towards their parents and complain. And then I remember being so bitter. I was very angry and very kind of jaded for a long time. But ultimately, I think the thing that helps me with that is a larger philosophy around comparing trauma, right? I've been through a lot of things in my life, right? Like I've gone through the death of my dad, my overdose, my ex's anorexia, my own suicidal ideation. Like all those things are tough. But by no means is it the hardest thing in life, right? Like I still live in the United States, and I guess the thing is like I could meet someone who could tell me the most graphic and horrific story that would make me honestly happy. I've gone through the things I've gone through. And so I guess for me, I just don't compare situations and I allow people to be kind of petty and I allow people to like vent their things and I don't project my situations onto people because yes, maybe I've had it harder than other people, but there's definitely people who have had it harder than me. And so I think about it in this context of what if I was like kind of complaining about what I went through, like say like on the live stream right now, someone jumped on and was like, "Yeah, you keep on talking about all these things, but like this is what I've been through." And I think when you start comparing trauma and start comparing, you know, like who has the right to be upset, it gets into this very weird moral high ground in this very weird place. And ultimately, the thing I didn't like is like that's kind of fucked up to decide for someone whether they're allowed to be upset about something. Like now, sometimes people can be. It's just like okay, like I feel like you're being a bit extra, but for the most part, I just try to be compassionate and I try to be understanding that like pain is so relative and what we go through is such an individual experience. And ultimately, like for instance, like if I had a conversation with someone who has been through like the worst things imaginable, right? Like the absolute worst things that make everything I've gone through seem insignificant, there's nothing about that story that like I can immediately relate to. Like just because other people have had things harder or other people have had things easier doesn't change my own relationship with the things I've been through. Oh, major depressive disorder. Okay, thank you, Michelle. Um, what type of training am I currently doing? Blake, so right now I'm not training because I'm trying to reform the relationship I have with my body. For the since I was 18, well, I've started lifting weights when I was 14. It was a little bit different, but when I started to lose weight at 18 until 27, so that's 9 years. For 9 years, the only motivation I've ever had in the gym or whatever is punishment and self hate. And now that I have my YouTube channel, which gives my life kind of meaning, and I've actually starting to do like things that make me feel happy, I don't really hate myself as much as I used to. I still struggle with self hate, but in that absence of completely hating myself, I find it difficult to go to the gym. I find it difficult to push myself because the only reason I've ever achieved anything with my body is out of the most extreme and horrific amount of self-hate. So right now I'm trying to, take a break from lifting, take a break from working out, reapproach that relationship and understand, like, okay, like I still want to look a certain way and I still value having a certain body, but like I'm not willing to have that body if it comes with the cost of hating myself and abusing myself. And so the question becomes like, can I have that body and be healthy about it? And I think I can, but I don't know how to do that yet. And until I figure that out, I think for my own mental health, I've taken a break. For instance, I haven't really gone to the gym besides once in over a month now, and that's the longest I've taken off of going to the gym actively in 6 years. So I think for me right now, I need to get my relationship with my body in a different place. Yeah, no, I like Savannah. Like, I don't think you're wrong for feeling that, right? Like, I don't think I don't want you to feel like that. Those nagging feelings are wrong. They're not wrong. It's about perspective, and I think it's difficult. It's especially insulting. Like I've had friends who know I've lost a parent and they sit there and they just complain about the stupidest stuff to me. And I'm just like, really? Like you're gonna talk about this? Like you can talk about it, but maybe not with me. And so I don't think you're wrong, Savannah. Like I think the way you're feeling is natural and I think it makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. I think for me, I care more about being compassionate and I care more about listening to people. So I've moved past it and I just don't want to be jaded and I don't want to be angry. But um, that doesn't mean being angry or getting annoyed with people is wrong. I think that's completely fair and completely allowed. Over quarantine, I developed anorexic symptoms for a few months, which led me to soon to be bulimic. I want to be able to be normal, and I'm trying to get help. I know it's bad. I know it's bad. I'm going through. Yeah, Sydney. Like, I'm really sorry to hear that. In all seriousness, like this pandemic's been hard on us because like when we have all our coping strategies in life is normal and all that's taken away from us and we're thrown into this isolation with ourselves, it's really easy to turn to like self-destructive habits, especially in terms of losing weight, like and being forced around food and these relationships that aren't healthy, and we don't have the ability to escape it. And when we can't feel like we can escape things, I think sometimes we fall down into it. Um, Alicia, how did your father's death make you think about life after death? I.e., was the thought of being somehow being reunited one day any comfort? Um, yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question. My dad was deeply religious. I'm not. I don't have anything against religion. I don't happen to be. So I like to think that there is this, some kind of realm where my dad and I can be, reunited. I have this video, the top five most important lessons I learned from the death of my father, which I really dive into how my father's passing helped me change the way I kind of viewed life. That's my that's my secret captain. I'm always extra. I don't necessarily get the reference, but yeah, the being extra sometimes is useful. A quick question I kind of wanted to ask you all is so this channel, my main channel, is more about mental health and self development. I do have a lot to talk about, like body image and weight loss and how to navigate that healthy relationship. So one thing I've been considering doing, because it's been clear that a lot of people, you know are craving information about these topics. The thing is like I don't want this channel to be necessarily only about like losing weight or body transformation or body image. Like there's a lot of other topics. Like I already talk about a ton of topics on my channel. So lately I've been thinking about spinning off and making a second channel that's only about our the relationship between our being and our body and how to navigate food and navigate like fitness and how do we achieve happiness in our body in a way that's sustainable and healthy. And so I guess the question is like is that something that like you'd be curious about? Like, is that something you're craving? Because ultimately, like, I want the focus of this channel to still be about like general mental health topics, but I do have a lot to say about, you know, fitness or weight loss or just improving your relationship with your body anyway. So I've been thinking about making a second channel where it just covered that, and I would love to pick you got your guys' brains about whether that's like something you would even care about. Oh yeah, yeah, no, okay, I finally get it. Yeah, yeah, okay. The Hulk reference. Yeah, okay, cool. As long as like people want that content, like I'm always happy to create it. Yeah. So the thing I struggle with the keeping it all on one channel, right? Is um here on YouTube it's hard because if I talk about a lot about fitness, new people are going to come onto the channel and then they're going to think that I don't know how to describe it. I guess I really want the purpose of this channel to be like kind of clear cut. Like there are a lot of people that only really necessarily care about like body image issues, or there's a lot of other people that only necessarily care about depression. So I guess the fear is like maybe, excuse me, maybe some people would be turned off to my channel or not find the content that they might need because it's intermixed with other topics they don't necessarily care about. Like for instance, say you're on my channel for, you know, talking about trauma or mental health and all this other aspects. Like I don't really necessarily want to inundate my uploads with a bunch of stuff that maybe you don't necessarily care about. Hey Max, I think it's Max. Hey Max, Data. Nice to see you. Hello. I think all in this channel. I would love to hear more of your poetry. Yeah, I'm super excited. I have a couple poetry poems coming out, spoken words. Poetry plays a huge part in my mental health and the way I've coped with my trauma. So I think that will always stay here on this channel. Am I reading any interesting books right now? Yeah, I'm reading a couple different books. I'm reading Carl Jung's book, and then I'm reading another book that's I don't remember the title of it. One of my subscribers one of my subscribers recommended me this a book about forgiveness, and so I'm reading this book, and it's talking about forgiveness in the function of law, like how do we legally define forgiveness, and it's a super interesting way of approaching forgiveness on a personal level and how to like forgive yourself for stuff. Yeah, no, okay, cool. Yeah, I've already created the channel. I just didn't really know if I wanted to go through with it, so I think it seems like maybe that's a good idea. Happy New Year, Max Data. Would you do a video on your poetic inspirations? It would be interesting to know more about your spoken word endeavors. Yeah, so one video I have coming up is why I put spoken word content on a self development channel, or why I use spoken word. Spoken word has been one of the most important tools I've ever used in coping with my depression and my trauma, and the kind of the way it's played a part in my life. So that's I mean maybe my second or third video that I have planned. Um, I think that would make a lot more sense to create a second channel only to allow that channel to have a chance to focus on specific topics. Okay, cool. I lost my mom when I was 8, and then had a father who wasn't interested. The later years dealing with being gay, and then 3 years ago I was diagnosed with cancer and was at death's door. See next comment. Um, yeah, Gene. That's a lot. That's one of those hard things. It's just like it always stuns me at like just the sheer like amount people can go through. I'm personally straight, but when I was younger, I was relentlessly bullied because people thought I was gay, and it was really difficult. And I can't even imagine because as miserable as an experience as it was to be bullied when I wasn't even actually gay, I can't even imagine what the experience might have been to actually have to contend with being gay in a society that doesn't always necessarily accept you or think that's a valid way to be. Yeah, I've read The Body Keeps the Score. The Body Keeps the Score is like one of my all-time favorite books. It's been really important on shaping the way I've looked at embodied trauma, and more importantly, actually, more so than myself, but understanding stuff that happened with my ex while we read it together while we were in the midst of some of her life-threatening anorexia. And it was such an amazing opportunity to have conversations and more deeply understand kind of what she was going through. Yeah, no, like if I did have this second channel, like it's not, I'm not ever going to give you fitness advice per se. I'm not going to tell you what workouts to do. There's already content creators that do that way better. I would be talking about the mindset and the mental health aspect of it only. Unless your style changes, I think it's fine to use one channel new content when or an entirely different channel, i.e. Yeah, that's a fair point, Triple. I still find fighting that battle with cancer and through all this is found that your mental state is everything. Do another channel as it's always great to see how people are battle mentally. Yeah, Gene, it seems like you're still going through cancer, and I'm really sorry to hear that. I've been really fortunate and blessed that like out of all the things I've faced that they were a very limited time. Even the stuff that persisted for a while, it eventually did end. And I'm really blessed that, or like with my overdose and almost dying, like as soon as I was out of the woods with that, I quickly became fine again. So I think cancer is this really hard thing because this persistence, like this persistent thing out of your control. And I just really want to give you my condolences and wish you the best of luck dealing with that. Yeah, I have taken the Myers Briggs a ton. I am a classic INFJ. I every time I've taken it, I get the INFJ. Yeah, I'm always curious whether like the people, especially the introverted versus extroverted, like what kind of personality types of the people that watch my content is. I have a suspicion it's mostly introverted, but I have no clue. Hey Rachel, you know what my Rachel's my sister, so you know exactly what sign I am. Nice. What does the S stand for again in the Myers Briggs? Where am I at for stream length here? Okay, wow, I'm already over an hour. Yeah, I know she is. Rachel. For those that don't know, I have, which I don't think really many people know, but I have six siblings, and I know you're not supposed to have favorites, but if I have a favorite, it's definitely Rachel. All's my thoughts, my feelings, please. Yeah, I think the mental health aspect, both as a man and in general about fitness and weight loss and body transformation, are really important topics to me. I think I have an interesting kind of history of being both extremes of being so desperate it almost cost me my life. I've had a lot of relationships with people who have struggled with weight in one way or another. So I don't know. I feel like maybe if I tackled that topic, I could bring around kind of a new way of approaching the subject. I think we all focus on like diets and focus on like workouts and all this stuff, and that's great. Like having tools about body change when you've already made that commitment is great, but I think the thing that's difficult is like how do we push through the relationship we have with our body? How do we deal with those aspects? And I think a lot of fitness content out there or like body image or like health content is so fixated on the top approach and not necessarily the mental. I don't know what to do. I'm good. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Sorry about that. So one of the ways I try to deal with time management is I set time limits on like apps like YouTube, and so it hit that time limit, and I had to like add more time, so it cut out the audio for a little bit there. Wow, okay. I couldn't it's crazy. I appreciate you all showing up and listening to me talk. It really does mean a lot to me. I was kind of afraid to be honest, where I was just gonna sit here with like two people and that obviously great, like whoever shows up. But it really means a lot that so many people showed up and chatted and asked me questions. Another thing I was afraid of is I was just gonna sit here and be awkward. Because believe it or not, I'm kind of an awkward person. It's great. But you all asking me great questions and spending time with me has been absolutely amazing. Um, my favorite food? Oh, that's tough. I go through phases where I really like a food and then I get burnt out. I think oh, a good carbonara, like a good Italian carbonara with like peas and bacon. I really, carbonara sounds amazing right now. Yeah, no, Sarah, carbonara is fire. I could go for that right now. I don't know if you've all ever had Buca di Beppo, which is like one of those Italian chain restaurants, but Buca di Beppo slaps. Their carbonara is amazing. Thank you for doing this. How can I deal with getting into realm of trying out things like cardian? I've never heard of that chemical or just extreme substances when I'm hitting plateaus. So here's my opinion of substances, right? Like anytime you introduce something into your body that like is meant to help or artificially stimulate your like metabolism, the issue is, and the issue why I took like I nearly died from DMP and I couldn't cycle off of DMP is like once you start losing weight on that substance, you become bound to that substance. Because you are artificially to some extent like changing what's going on in your body. And so in my own personal experiences, like every time I would cycle off of a chemical, I would immediately start gaining weight, so I'd go back on it. And so I had this codependent relationship with these chemicals that nearly cost me my life. And so that's really kind of what I would say is like plateaus are hard, and plateaus do involve you finding a new way to navigate weight loss. You're changing your body. But when you introduce a chemical or some kind of other thing into your body that isn't changing your diet or changing your exercise or something like that, you become dependent on that chemical. And the gains you get or the weight loss you get will quickly fall off. It's a big reason I never did steroids, is because even though I had people in my life who were doing steroids, the reason I never did it was it didn't make sense to me. Like the second you stop taking steroids, you lose all that muscle you've gained, because the only reason the muscle exists is because of the chemical. So ultimately that's my advice, is like I know chemicals are tempting, I know fat burners are tempting, and it may get you results, but those results will kind of quickly go away. Thank you for doing that. Dude, I overdose whenever I feel homicidal and suicidal. I almost died too, but I still continue to do it. I wish I could stop thinking about doing it. Um, Banana Nana, are you talking about DMP, or if you don't mind me asking, what you overdosed on, or whether you're kind of talking about something outside the realm of fitness, or you're more talking about like your own mental health sort of thing? Um, so then what about people who now almost normalizing being on therapeutic uses of TR2 in exchange of the ultimate physiques? I don't like, I don't know, it's hard. Like at the end of the day, like whatever you want to put in your body, like you have that agency, you have that right. I know on a personal level, like I'm not a fan. I don't take any supplements anymore. Even when I am working out, I don't take supplements. So I don't know. I think it's hard because like if you want to achieve something that can only been achieved by taking a substance or like a drug or something like that, it's difficult because that physique or that look or that way you want to feel about your body is only achievable under those circumstances. So I guess my advice is question why you want that. Like, is that really actually going to make you happy? And are you worth the health trade-offs in order to achieve that? And I, on a personal level, I'm personally not. Like, I've almost already lost my life due to an overdose on a fat burner. I don't want to make that trade anymore. And I want to be happy in a way that is sustainable and healthy. Vaping is a tough one. I've managed to kind of keep off of it sometimes, but like lately, there's been some kind of events in my life, so like I do sporadically kind of relapse. I've ordered like nicotine-free vaping, so when those come in, I think will help a lot. I have a really bad oral fixation. Oh yeah, my leg. Yeah, I'm definitely nervous. I'm definitely juggling my leg. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, Cal. And the thing is like all like if you look through some of my fitness photos, you can achieve like an absolutely amazing body. I've achieved, a body I'm very proud of at times without drugs. And granted, a lot of that was self hate, which I'm not, advocating for. But like you can still look amazing and still be happy with who you are without ever touching substances of any kind. Yeah, so like with nicotine, I been struggling with it because I do on occasion relapse. I'm going through some kind of difficult things that can't really talk about right now, and so there are times where I've kind of relapsed back into it. I just have such a bad habit around vaping, and so what I've done is I've ordered a bunch of nicotine-free vapes, and I'm kind of hoping to still have that habit of vaping without actually having nicotine will help me. But lately there's been some things I really need to focus on, and being like irritable and being tired and going through withdrawals is like not something I can really deal with right now because of that. Yeah, no, the oral fixation for me is super hard. So we're already at like an hour and a half. So I guess in this last kind of like maybe 5-10 minutes, I just want to open the question of like what you all would want from live streams. Do you want to have an environment where you can ask me questions? Do you want to have an environment where potentially people could come on and share their own stories? Like what as because you are the viewers, like you determine what is important or what you want. And so ultimately, like I'm here to like serve you, I'm here to give you what you want. So I'm really curious, like what is it that like you would want to see? If it's just hanging out and talking, that's also completely fine. But I don't know, I'm just curious because I've never done this before. This is all new to me. So yeah. um Janie Murphy. I don't know if I'm saying your name right. I'm sorry if I am. That's awesome. 22 pounds in 12 months. Like, um, I think is amazing. The ability to keep weight off, especially during the pandemic and lockdown. So like, I wish you the best of success of like maintaining that in a way that like you feel is sustainable and is great for your mental health. Um, okay, cool. Ask questions, hang out. Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable with whatever. I'm actually pretty excited about live streamings because I love my scripted videos and I love the content I produce. But I think having the format where I can more directly talk about things is pretty exciting. One thing I would like to do is if you want to send me a question you would like live streamed, maybe like leave a comment here or like email me. I would love to have someone ask me, like a kind of a complex question they want my advice on, and then break it down with you all on the live stream and go over it. I think taking maybe like 15 or 20 minutes to go through, these very specific questions people have would be pretty cool. Yeah, live video reactions. Yeah, I think I honestly do way better when I can actually
talk to you all and have like a live kind of interaction. Yeah, Christopher, I'm so happy to hear that it's inspired you. Also, dope name. I'm a big fan of the name Christopher. Yeah, I think when you're desperate, like it's important to have people to look up to, and it's important to know that you can do it without harming yourself or potentially ending your life. So the fact that anyone feels inspired by me or thinks my content has value, like I'm so humbled. I never would have thought anyone would have cared or found value in it. So that the fact that some of you do, it really does mean like everything to me. All right, cool. Just chill combos and good to listen. We'll definitely be joining everyone. Thank you so much. uh Yeah, no, I agree. Like steroids are a tool, but if you don't put in the time or work, same with DMP. Like DMP is a very dangerous fat burner. But I've met people that have gained weight on DMP because if you don't put in the time and effort, not that you should ever take it. Once again, I don't think you should ever take it. But the point is like even though these tools exist, like they don't guarantee you results, and they could potentially end your life, which makes it really challenging to take these chemicals. I think hanging out Q&A discussion is cool, makes you super approachable, and we as a community can also communicate. Um, Younger by 3 years, so oh, thank you, man. Like that's another thing is like my audience is like 85% women, which is amazing. I'm a person, I've my entire life I've only really had female friends. There's a lot of reasons for that, but it's cool to have men in my spaces as well. I obviously love my female subscribers too. I think it's funny because I didn't really know how my demographics would shake out, but to see that I have predominantly a female audience has been kind of interesting and cool. I don't really necessarily know why, besides the fact that my main video that blew up was about eating disorders, and those tend to be largely female based kind of topics. And women seek out that information more, but it's cool to see so many people stick around regardless. Big love from the UK. What's up, Sean? Live responding to questions sounds great. But also the chill hangout vibe is just lovely. Yeah, I ultimately just want to get to know you all better. I want to have a chance to make you feel heard, make you feel seen, and just have these conversations. It really does mean a lot to me. For difficult questions, some argue that you built your base is your physique about the substances and now are able to maintain. How would you counter that? I would counter that argument by saying that I've had a very cyclical thing with my body. Like, yes, I did go down to 60 pounds, but I've also gained a lot of weight. So it wasn't that I just lost a lot of weight with DMP. Like, my body, I've gained a lot of weight, lost it, gained a lot of weight, lost it. So I understand where your point's coming from, but ultimately, like, the DMP didn't keep me there. And that's the point I'm driving at, is that even with DMP, the second I stopped taking it, I gained 25 pounds, I gained 30 pounds. And so it's always this cyclical nature involved with it. So I guess that would be my counterpoint, is that, yeah, like I used DMP to go from like 210 pounds down to 160. But the second I stopped taking it, I almost went back up to 200. So yeah, I achieved an amazing body with it. But the second I stopped taking it, I lost that body. Also, sorry, I know you switched subjects, but mental health, body image, fitness, depression, trauma can all be so incredibly interconnected. Yeah, I agree. And even if I were to do the second channel, I would definitely focus on the way in which mental health, trauma, and depression, affects our body. I guess I haven't made a decision. I think what I'm gonna do when I do start this channel is keep upload some of those videos on the other channel on this channel and see how people kind of interact with it. And if people don't really have an issue with it being on this channel, I might keep it on this channel. I haven't really made a decision. At the end of the day, like, this is my main channel. This is the channel that, like, I've created a community with. I've created content here. So as long as that's the focus and maintaining that I keep creating content here, that's really what I care about. had to type on this treadmill. Yeah, I mean, the fact that I'm attractive probably does play like a small part. Not gonna lie. I don't really have a good like understanding of where to like put myself in terms of attractiveness. I've spent most of my life being rather unattractive, so it's I don't really have a good conceptualization of that. But people have, you know, like commented and said I'm handsome, or hit on me, and I'm flattered, and it means a lot. Yeah, I think that does play a part in it. I can't lie. I look like Legolas. Okay, I don't know about 10 out of 10. Let's go for like a 6.5. I would be comfortable with that. Um, yeah, the fact that you've never taken drugs and lost weight, that's amazing. I think that's really commendable. I think be careful though. One of my experiences is like with my ex-fiance and my own eating disorders is like you don't need to take drugs to develop a problem with food, and it's really easy to get into a really negative place. So I think you losing 22 pounds in 12 months is amazing, but be careful. Don't get overly fixated on numbers, and don't get overly fixated on making progress. Like focus more on finding happiness with your body and doing that in a way that's sustainable. Okay, y'all, don't gas me up like that. I can't. Honestly, open discussions about mental health. Yeah, the main thing I care about is having open discussions about mental health. I really like talking about taboo subjects. I really like breaking down the walls around, you know, like I don't think it's weird to talk about suicidal ideation. I don't think it should be weird to talk about. We've talked about eating and all this other stuff. Like I don't want I don't know. I just want to be a place where like we can just have chill, informed, open conversations about depression, about trauma, about hardship, and hopefully be a place where other people can kind of share those stories in a place that feels safe. Okay, I don't know about a 9, man. You all are too much. I've spent most of my life being rather unattractive. Yeah, no, I really, I will find a photo. I promise you. Me in high school was very rough. But it's ironic because I'm really thankful for that experience. It's made me very humble. Daniel, 10 out of 10, Big Poppy, whatever. It's an interesting topic, and I like nerding out, and opens the door for avocation of mental health. Yeah, Michelle, you said, do you mind telling me again? You're in grad school for some mental health aspect, right? Curious about what my relationship with alcohol is like. I know a lot of people who struggle with depression and food issues struggle with drinking and have complicated relationships with it. So yeah, this is a story I've never talked about. Another future video one day. When I was 15 and 16, I broke my collarbones 2 separate times in football. I played football, I was very aggressive. I broke my collarbones twice. Both times I broke my collarbones, I was prescribed, the first time I was prescribed Vicodin, and the second time I was prescribed Percocet. And both times I got very badly addicted as a teenager to both of these drugs. And that experience of going through addiction, and that experience of I got the second time I broke my collarbones, it was during final weeks of my junior year of high school. And I was so high that I failed all of my finals. No, it was the end of sophomore year. I guess it doesn't really matter, but I was so high and on so many painkillers, I failed all my finals. Luckily, they allowed me to take them again. But as a teenager going through addiction and struggling with drug abuse, I quickly understood that downers are dangerous for me. So I do like to drink, but I don't like being drunk. I also have social anxiety, and I don't do well if I don't feel like I have control in social situations. So the most amount I'll ever drink is like just like enough to get slightly buzzed. But yeah, I don't like being drunk. I don't like abusing downers. Unfortunately, on the other end, I have had quite a rough history with stimulants, because it's kind of especially in the worst parts of my depression, I kind of fell into the grips of like abusing stimulants, and doing a lot of those kind of drugs. But when it comes to alcohol, I really like control, and I really like having control of my body. And so downers, whether it's opioids, alcohol, or whatever, that experience as a teen was so awful that I don't know. I just don't really like being suppressed like that. Um, no, and that's the crazy thing is like my painkillers when I had a broken collarbone, it wasn't any less painful necessarily. It just made me not care that I was in pain. So painkillers are weird. I don't. I feel like they're a weird thing to prescribe. And both times I got really badly addicted really quickly. And so that's the scary thing about addictive chemicals is like I know my brain and my brain is particularly addictive. And it's no surprise that I got really badly addicted to nicotine because I just think my neurochemistry, like I get addicted especially easy. I didn't realize I was depressed until I started losing weight. I'm a social worker, so I should be able to figure out to recognize the signs earlier than I did. I don't know. I think that's hard, Jamie. Like there's this delay, right? There's this delay between the recognition of something and when it starts affecting us because we're not normally in tune to like notice something the second it's happening. So often it has to build up into this thing that finally makes it aware to our consciousness and our beings. So that's the thing that's difficult is like by the time you realize something's even wrong, it has a momentum to it. So yeah, I definitely don't think that's something you should feel embarrassed or like ashamed of or even silly that you didn't recognize it until it was already kind of ingrained because that's just I feel like the nature of any kind of thing that we deal with. It takes a while to even realize that it's happening. I used to work with kids who have who have. Oh yeah, okay, I remember. Michelle. So that's definitely the video that piqued my interest. You giving unique perspectives on the subject. Yeah, I remember you left the comment that made me feel really relieved that I was talking about it in a way that wasn't harmful. I took one Percocet in my life and it was awful. It didn't really help with the pain. It just helped me sleep. Yeah, it just helped me sleep. It helped me not care that I was in pain. I was still in a lot of pain, but yeah, Percocets and being high, especially on downers, I like it too much and I refuse to take downers anymore. My honesty is amazing. Thank you. It's really the only way I know how to be. At the end of the day, like I'm here to help people. I'm not really necessarily here to make you like me. Like I said, if you did like me, that'd be great. But I just want to be honest and I want to try to help. And I can't help you if I lie to you. Like I can't help you if I sit here and say things that aren't true. I'm really happy with you as a content creator. Very relatable and so refreshing to see someone who is real and transparent. Gotta go. Wishing you the best. Excited to see. Thank you so much, Philip. Thank you for spending time with me. And anyone else who has to go, like I totally get it. I just want to say thank you for like leaving comments and spending time with me today. I feel like I just want to be friends with everyone here. Such a good community. Yeah, honestly, you all are great. The fact you're all over the world, you're all super like nice. No one's trolled me yet. One of my best friends, Daniel, the first time he live streamed, or a couple times he live streams, he had someone come in and say, I think some racist stuff or just like curse and stuff. So the fact that no one's done that yet, knock on wood, I really appreciate. I see you, Emmanuel. Thank you so much for the compliment. I think you just finished grad school. That's amazing. Yeah, so we're rolling at almost 2 hours here. So yeah, I think I might live stream again this time, maybe next week, if that works with you all. Um, I'll put out another community post. Whenever I want feedback, by the way, I'm going to do community post. But yeah, so I think the format for now is like a Q&A thing and answering questions and just kind of hanging out with you all. Thank you so much. Thank you for saying that. Like, I'm glad I've made anyone feel inspired or understood or related. I just want to say to you personally, like you all have made me feel less alone. You've given me meaning to my life. So thank you. Like you all mean a lot to me. And I really enjoy having this opportunity to sit down and get to know you all better. So yeah, I think the plan is to do this again in a week and see how it goes. I'm going to put a community post where if there's a specific question you want answered, I can start thinking about it. And so, yeah, it's been really amazing. Thank you so much for spending time with me all. Looking forward to seeing you all again in about a week. So, yeah, internet group hug, yes. Love you, Daniel. Love you all. Like, thank you all so much for spending time with me. Hey, all right, see you guys.